Disqualified presidential aspirant of the Progressive People's Party is demanding a 5-minute discussion with the chair of the Electoral Commission to resolve what he says are administrative and clerical errors committed during the filing of his nomination.
My lawyers agree that there is another option, but that option, I, Papa Kwesi Indom, do not want it.
Earlier, supporters of the party demonstrated at the party's head office demanding assurances from the flag bearer that he is still in the race. Dr. Pakwesi Indom is not alone in this. Other disqualified aspirants today stormed the Electoral Commission headquarters to demand responses.
I was told I've been disqualified, and I didn't take it lightly because, first of all, this is not my first time of contesting.
We'll be hearing from the PPP and also get some interpretation of the Constitution and other statutes governing the Electoral Commission, plus some independent analysis from a political analyst. This is today's big story. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Dr. Pakwesi Indom stressed that he will, although reluctantly, seek legal redress if the EC boss Charlotte Osei fails to give him audience to rectify the anomaly and put him back onto the list of aspirants to contest the 2016 elections. At a press conference today, the embattled flag bearer said when put back on the ballot, he will, without fail, become Ghana's next president. The PPP flag bearer was part of 13 others disqualified from contesting the upcoming elections for various acts of fraud, negligence, and voter irregularities. We can listen to Dr. Pakwesi Indom, who addressed the media a while ago.
I am here to call on the Electoral Commission, specifically the returning officer for the presidential election, who also happens to be the chairperson of the EC, to allow the opportunity to meet with me to rectify any anomaly identified in the nomination papers amicably. I have had a full discussion with my lawyers, and we have reviewed the document that we filed, which was just given to us today. And here's the document. It's a document that we filed. This is one of 4 copies that we filed. You see all the pages in that document. And it is only today that we have received this and had the opportunity to review them. And where anybody can call that there is a problem, there are those 2 places where I have put the sticker in all of the document. And they are not in the entire pages. They are in just some short, small sections in those 2 pages. And so, with all due respect, we believe that the issue we have here is not a matter of some fraudulent behavior on anybody's part, but an administrative or clerical matter that can be rectified quite simply, based on the evidence that I have with me, which is in here. A 5-minute discussion with Mrs. Charlotte Osei, the returning officer, will result in me being cleared to contest this December 7, 2016 election as a presidential candidate. That is all that it will take. Let me say that again. As I'm saying to you, with all that is in this document, all that is required is a 5-minute discussion with the returning officer, Mrs. Charlotte Osei. And the situation will be resolved, and I will be cleared to contest this December 7, 2016 election as a presidential candidate. And I am confident that once I am on the ballot, I'll become the next president of the Republic. I am asking the chairperson of the EC and the returning officer to let me know by the end of this week, Thursday this week, when we can meet and deal with this matter positively. Because I believe that it is a simple administrative or clerical matter that can be resolved. And we even know that someone has even been given until tomorrow to deal with the issues that he encountered, and that some other contestant was not able to pay their filing fee the stipulated time and has been cleared to contest the election. My lawyers agree that there is another option, but that option, I, Papa Kwesi Indom, do not want it. However, if we cannot solve this matter simply, administratively, then we will take the legal route and go to court to seek satisfaction so that I can be on the ballot.
Now, joining me in the studio is Kofi Asamoah-Sian, who is Communications Director of the PPP, to do more on this. You seem very sure of this 5 minutes you want the EC to give you to rectify. How easy is that going to be?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. That depends on the Electoral Commission. When we had the announcement through the press conference yesterday, we went to the Commission's office to seek more clarification on the matter.
Right.
We didn't meet the members of the Commission and the returning officer herself. Today we followed up, and then we're given a letter and a copy of the nomination forms. And the letter makes interesting reading. They stated what was announced in the press conference in the letter, the matter in respect of Richard Asida.
Right.
And then they say something interesting here. The implication of the above situation is that you did not have the requisite number of subscribers required under Regulation 72B of CI 94 to support your nomination.
Right.
This is clearly what CI 94 Section 9, subsection 2 deals with. When the nomination of a candidate is considered or shall be considered invalid when it is not subscribed to in accordance with law, or the people subscribing to it, their particulars are as not described by law. Now, this is clearly where, in our case, the violation is,
right,
or the error is.
Okay.
Now, if you get to that point and you have such a situation, it is considered an invalid nomination.
Right.
And the commission is supposed to inform the candidate to make that correction, alteration, or amendment.
Okay.
So it is that audience we are seeking to correct that. It doesn't constitute disqualification.
Okay.
Madam Charlotte Osei and her lawyers are a bit confused, because if you read Section 9, Sub-Regulation 1, the sentence ends with disqualification. Okay. Which says that when the EC has proofs that the person is dead, he's withdrawn from the race, or he is disqualified, that is when it moves to 3 or 2, talking about invalidity.
Okay.
So they are interpreting invalidity to mean disqualification, and it's clear in the letter that they said here that the commission is mandated to disqualify a candidate if a number of things happen. And in respect of ours, is the nomination forms are not properly signed by all the subscribing voters, and you don't have registered voters in two people in each district to endorse your nomination form. We believe that that error that has been occasioned is not a ground for disqualification. Right. It's a ground for invalidity of the form. And that invalidity, the commission is told by law, shall inform the candidate involved and give that candidate reasonable time to correct that anomaly. We see this letter not as a rejection. And if you permit me, I read the last paragraph of their letter. The commission is satisfied that the above irregularities constitute a substantial breach of the rules necessitating the rejection of your nomination forms. The letter didn't conclude the disqualification. So we consider this letter
as an
opportunity to come and make sure
and make your
that your nomination form conforms with what is described by law, and that opportunity is also sanctioned by law. And that is why we are seeking that 5 minutes with the commission to get this thing done quickly. It's not a tussle at all.
Right.
So we need to clear that.
I'll have you hold and speak with lawyer Yao Pong. Indeed, he's a private legal practitioner. Now, good evening to you, Mr. Pong.
Good evening.
Right. The Electoral Commission is guided by the Constitution and other statutes, including the People's Representation Act and CI 94, which the EC says it has followed to the latter. Yet many of the presidential aspirants that thronged the EC for some explanations today accuse the EC of erring in their decision. Indeed, you just heard the PPP also saying same. Did the EC err in disqualifying the 13 candidates?
Well, thank you very much. Good evening. I think my position on part of this matter is well known. I have said publicly that any condition or requirement set by anybody or person which seeks to add to the eligibility and the qualification criteria for a person to become President of the Republic of Ghana or a member of the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana, in my view, will be inconsistent with the Constitution. And I have said that, especially when it comes to payment of money as a condition, and it is increasingly becoming a condition precedent, that even when you have satisfied the conditions in Article 62 and or 94, as the case may be, you are still required to meet another condition which is set by a subsidiary legislation or act, which is an act of parliament, for example, or the CI, constitutional instrument. And I'm saying that anybody who may have been disqualified on that basis may, in my view, may be successful if he wants to challenge the dedication. But the other matters relating to documentation, I think those arguing that the EC may also have to advert their mind to Article 63, especially in respect of those who wanted to, or the candidates, those who want candidates for presidential election. Because once the Constitution sets a criteria, that criteria is supreme and has to be complied with. And 63 at least says that a person shall not be a candidate in a presidential election unless he is nominated for election as president by a document which is signed by him and is signed by not less than 2 persons who are registered voters resident in the area of authority of each district. We can go on with the others. But the point really is that even though this 63 is not specifically about disqualification and eligibility, it adds up to it. And for me, once it is clearly stated in the Constitution, it has to be obeyed. If there is a subsidiary legislation, and my friend, the gentleman you interviewed, really set out correctly, except that the description of the provision were a bit, he mixed it a bit. With the CI, we have regulation. The regulation that he referred to as Regulation 9 and Regulation 2, 3, and thereabout.
Okay.
They really say that the EC must give opportunity to persons to rectify, or the word used is amend or alter errors. But we need to distinguish between errors. We have errors which are, let's say, minor, and we do not go to the root of a matter. Tampering at the wrong part of a document, I would say is a minor error which does not go to the root and therefore can be altered or amended or rectified. Then the next one is error that goes to the root. And then the third one would be imputation of criminal offense or fraudulent misrepresentation. So if a person endorses, proposes, or nominates presidential candidate and also nominates another person, or does so twice for one person, that person may be charged with an allegation of fraudulent misrepresentation. The next issue is, do you then have to punish the unsuspecting candidate? And I use that word advisedly. So the role of, or the sin of that person whom the candidate may not have had reasonable expectations that he was going to engage in such fraudulent misrepresentation. But if he had done so, and I have said elsewhere already, that we had an example in the presidential election case. I hope you are listening.
Yeah, you're still on air.
We are concluding. We had an example in the presidential election case in which the petitioners made a strong case for the court to annul all votes that were covered by particular penalties that were not signed by the presiding officers, contrary to mandatory provisions of the law that they should sign. The majority of the court said that it would be wrong to visit, and I'm putting it in my own words, but very close to it, to visit the sins of the presiding officer on the unsuspecting voter to the extent that you are going to declare void or render void a lawful exercise of that person's civil right.
Right.
And so when you apply it to this present matter, an argument may be made that a candidate has a duty to ensure that those who propose him or nominate him or endorse him, one qualified to do so, and if he has the means to verify it has been done. Now, the 9.3 or 9.2 that my friend is highlighting in the CI 94,
right,
of course, says that the EC or the Electoral Commission officer, and in this case, the chairperson who is the returning officer for the presidential election, had a duty to draw the attention of this candidate. And the CI says, within the stipulated time. I think that in conclusion, we also need, as a people, to fashion out the appropriate legal and institutional framework to ensure that when a date is set, that date should be set in a way that affords people who will be affected by it or who will be stakeholders a reasonable opportunity to comply with the rules that come with the stipulation. Then also, when the stipulation is done, we must just only complying with the stipulation or the stipulated period just on the last day or on the last minute. And if that is done, then I have said that there's no reason, there's no problem where the EC could even cause a CI to be passed that 6 months before. People should start gathering those who intend, because some of these parties nominated or elected their flag bearers about 2 years ago.
Right.
So those who will be able to do so 2 years, even a year earlier to the election, should be able to commence the processes for gathering of this information. And the EC should have a database that anybody can in his office assess and see that this person has already.
Right.
Somebody give an example of buying a phone card. Once I charge it, if you find
you cannot use the same digits to also recharge your phone.
Tell me it's being used by the same user. So
exactly.
I think you all have to sit down and look at all these issues. But there is a duty on both the EC and the candidate to try and do what is right. And I think that those who think they will go to court, let them go is the best way to challenge the actions of persons and infringement of law. And I think the court being arbiters, being reasonable arbiters, and we have the best in town, I think they will look at the matter and determine to enforce the best interest of the people of Ghana.
Well, many thanks to you, Mr. Lawyer Yao Opong, for
I receive all the titles. Thank you.
For the education. Many thanks. Now, the PPP believes that it has a case, and therefore, if dialogue does not work, it will take legal actions. What makes you so sure that you will succeed in this action?
Well, the laws are clear. Lawyer Opong said it all. We believe that the term disqualification is a term of law. It is defined. So like you were saying, that if you go to the Constitution, Article 62, and the same thing is lifted from there and put in PNDC Law 285, the one governing presidential elections, and you could see the very first section of that law lists the same qualifications you see in Article 62. None of them talks about an invalid nomination form. So the Constitution and the law anticipated errors on the part of candidate in completing those areas. And now, like Lawyer Opong said, in this particular instance, only 2 things are listed where if you breached, the commission is supposed to call your attention to it. One is invalid when the people who subscribe to your form are not registered voters.
Right.
And 2, you didn't subscribe to it in the way that follows the law.
Okay.
So if we subscribed the forms and sent it, and it was shot by one person, it means that that error had been occasioned and referred to in the section. And that section says that when these 2 things happen, inform the candidate.
Right.
We have no such information. The EC, post the press conference, decided to use its communications officials to clarify the matter. And they said those who submitted their forms early were given an opportunity to rectify. That is why we submit, and we still have a case, that we submitted our form 9 a.m. on Friday the 30th.
Okay.
Between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m., the EC had the opportunity to scrutinize our form and give us the opportunity to rectify any error they detected.
All right.
The EC cannot postpone that and take the form post 30th, 5 p.m., 7 days after. And you see, the 7 days they said we're going to use to scrutinize is after. It's when the candidate has been given the opportunity and he has refused to come and rectify. That is when the returning officer, in this case, Madam Charlotte, said, will hand it over to the commission for a decision to be made in 7 days. It is not 7 days after 30th for the commission to go and vet the nomination process. So there is a misreading of the law and the processes are being sidestepped. And I think that we have drawn the attention of the commission to it. This letter tells us that there's no disqualification. They've made references cleverly to disqualification and disqualify and so on and so forth. The conclusion is that your forms have been rejected. If having done this communication and it is not a media we didn't use the mass media to address it.
Right.
Yes, we've done it through the mass media, but there is official direct communication between us and the Electoral Commission.
Okay.
There has been some acknowledgement of that communication. We are hoping for that opportunity for us to interact. When that opportunity comes, and the insistence is that what we have done constitute disqualification, and therefore you cannot be on the ballot, that is when we exercise the other option that we have, which will delay the process, will frustrate everybody, but it's an option that can be avoided, and we hope that is what is used to settle this matter. Otherwise, the court option is not ruled out at all.
But this process doesn't seem to me like a very easy process, and definitely is going to affect your campaign activities.
You mean the legal process?
You were the dialogue,
Yeah.
if it gets to legal, we don't even hope it gets there. We're hoping that you come out with the best solution to this matter, but it certainly will affect your campaign activities.
Yeah, definitely.
Are you worried? And what do you intend to do?
Well, it's definitely it's taking us off course, because we're not supposed to be, if you like, having a banter with the Electoral Commission.
Right now.
We're supposed to review the second round of our campaign, and we are going to move on. Tomorrow we continue with our campaign. We are meeting all our parliamentary candidates. After that, we have some activity in the Greater Accra area. We will move to the Volta region on Friday. So campaign is going on. We hope we are able to put this behind us quickly so that we are more focused and direct our energies to the campaign. The people are just looking for change. Some people are, if you like, saying that because of where we pick candidates from, there's an unseen hand manipulating things here and there. We don't want to believe that. Our constituents and, if you like, voters for PPP, there are young people between 18 and 35 who are unemployed.
Right.
And they are in every region of Ghana. They belong to every tribe.
Right.
So it is not the case that we are going to go that line to, if you like, subscribe to those innuendos that somehow, because we are making inroads in some part of the country, somebody doesn't want the PPP to be on the ballot. Let's focus on the law. The law says that when these things occur, give an opportunity to the candidates to rectify. The EC admits, and if you ask the chairperson and everybody else, they admit that that communication was not done. And they say something interesting, that the nomination, the opportunity to rectify should have been done within the nomination period. We accept that. If they insist that the nomination period means 30th September, all that we are saying is that then the commission should have done the vetting also within that period, and therefore the communication should have been done within that period. If they didn't do all of that and then they postponed it,
then they have also not
followed the procedure. So you can't violate your own laws and turn around to accuse the PPP of not subscribing. Yeah.
Well, we wish you luck in this process. Many thanks to you, Kofi Asamoah-Siang, for turning up on today's big story. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. Good evening.